Hi, my name is Charles Malki, a biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants. And today we're here at the Laguna Hills Nursery in Santa Ana, California, where gardening lessons that'll help you make this growing season your best. Let's get started. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the Laguna Hills Nursery, where Gary and our topic for this morning is called sustainable gardening. And does anybody want to share some ideas of what they believe sustainable gardening is? How would you define sustainable gardening? Any of you?
I don't know. For me, I think it's about your soil. Like soil being important and allowing your garden to keep reproducing. So
soil health?
I think it's more about you don't have to put in more than you're actually getting back.
Putting in more?
By putting in more resources than what you're actually getting back.
The general concept with sustainable gardening is, and the concept is to bring minimal products from outside sources and gardening like within your property with the resources that are there. An example being with the materials that you're pruning and cutting from, whether it be your vegetables or from your trees, and recycling those items back into the garden. Your kitchen scraps that are from inside your house, turning those back into compost and using those to feed your plants. You're working within your property and using, again, very little to few resources from outside, both on the plant care, pest control, fertilizers, the whole list of plant care, and trying to do it within your property, and again, taking very little from outside. Another important concept when it comes to sustainable gardening is that it's always organic. And that's another important consideration. There's going to be several topics that Gary's going to go more into, specifically talking about mulch, fertilizers, and soil health, pest control. Is there another one you want to throw? Rotation. And crop rotation. So another healthy practice for making sure that your plants perform at optimal conditions. What I want to focus on, that is my introduction to sustainable gardening, is I want to start off with talking about the gardening concept known as whitewashing. And that is, again, my name is Charles Malki. I'm a biologist, plant expert with Ivory Organics. A handful, I'd say close to half of you guys already know me. How many of you, just a show of hands, have seen me, whether it be on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram? Oh, there's a few more hands than I expected. Yeah. And my mom and dad, they're in the left corner. They've seen me. It's their first garden club that they've ever been to. So thanks for watching and giving me the added stress of now having to meet mom and dad's expectations too. But I want to start off with whitewashing, and I want you guys, because I have a cheat sheet which I did not give to you guys. There's some information you have on Ivory Organics and some of the answers I'm going to share with you have. My goal is I want all of you, between me and Gary, to leave with more information and make this your best growing season ever. And what I typically do to make sure that you've left knowing is I'll have typically a lot of blanks. I'll have your pens in hand. And if you don't have the answers, that means you left learning something new. But I've made it easier because all the answers are here. You don't have to take the notes, but I'm going to kind of question you, see what feedback I get, and then I'm just going to give you all the answers. And it's a very short cheat sheet, which I think if you follow these 5 gardening tips, it will help make this your best growing season ever. And it's quite simple, whether you're a beginning gardener or an advanced gardener. But I want to get into whitewashing first. How would you define whitewashing? Any of you?
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
Not in a gardening context.
No?
You said what?
Whitewashing?
For
plants.
Yeah.
Retreat. I've seen you whitewash.
Yeah, so you know. The ones that have their hands up know what it is. It's shocking that I'll go to nurseries that are stocking our products, and I'll come in teaching the staff that work there the word whitewashing. They're like, just as you said, never heard it, don't know what it is. And whitewashing, typically if you drive up and down the 5 freeway, you'll sometimes notice some of the youngest trees are painted white. And you'll see trees, or maybe grandparents' houses, you'll see the trees are being painted white, and they typically just go to the hardware store, pick up some paint, mix it with water, apply it to the tree. And with my next question to you all is, why whitewash your trees? And anybody, even if you've actually seen me, what is it going to do? So
For
pest
pests?
protection, other ones, sun damage, sun. Would you say, show of hands, is it more of a summer issue to whitewash your trees or a winter issue to whitewash your trees?
Are you talking about painting the
Painting your trees white. Just
the
let's say
bottom.
painting them. Typically the bottom, like you're protecting the
Okay.
trunk. And I'm going to get into a little bit more detail on that in a
Don't
second.
do pure paint, though.
What's that?
Don't do pure paint, she doesn't know.
We're going to get into the pure paint in a second.
You should probably use IV Organics.
You should be using Arbor Organic. If you Google the word whitewashing, whitewashing is predominantly across the entire country a winter protection of plants. You're basically protecting them from an issue known as sun scald. And so with the Arbor Organic products, it reads on here protection from damaging sunburn insects and rodents. But that sunburn predominantly protection across the country is you're protecting your plants from winter sun scald, which is a phenomenon where the ground is too cold, typically near freezing temperature, but you get daytimes that can sometimes be 60, 70 degrees, and the plant fluids above the ground is moving, and the plant sometimes will push growth, sometimes flower, which is not in sync with what's happening below the ground. So by whitewashing the plant, you're keeping the plant cool as it should be because the soil is still cool, and that the plant wakes up in line with warmer soils. And then the plants will perform better, they'll bloom, consistent with the season. Overall, you mentioned sunburn, it's now gonna protect your plants through the harshness of those sunny days since it doesn't have a canopy yet. So they're pushing out the new leaves and now protecting the underlying tree trunks and branches. And the list just continues on and on and on. For me, with all of the practices important for gardening, which include, fertilizers and mulching and pruning and all of the, topics, whitewashing, which means, painting what I call, and I've defined, and I haven't seen anybody else do this, the heart of the tree. And we did a recent video on Arbor Organics YouTube channel where we lowered the heart of the tree being the tree trunk, which let's say is the body, and then the lower branches. As long as I protect the heart of the plant, being again the tree trunk and the lower branches from damaging sunburn and insect invasions, like let's say I prune the branch, now I've got an open wound that's going to take a few years to heal, I'm going to seal that up. Rose prune seals, tree prune seals that are typically, whether they're latex based or tar based products, is non-organic ways of accomplishing it. And one of the things, now talking about the Arbor Organics products, Arbor Organics was born to basically replace the traditional ways of whitewashing, which is for the last 100 years has been using paint from, again, those paint stores. Prior to that, going back thousands of years ago, people would typically use limestone. That was like a healthy way, and that's one of the ingredients you'll find in the product. Mica, which is clay, another way to basically lighten the tree trunk and protect it from those extremes. These ingredients are a lot more complicated, again, all being organic. Milk proteins are in there that help it with the bonding so it lasts closer to about a year. One application will typically protect your plant for an entire year from the harshness of the summer sun and also take it through the coldest days of winter as well. Offering protection from winter sun scald is the definition. So with paint, which has been the way most American farmers have been protecting their trees, was using paint from the paint store. There's interior latex paint, exterior latex paint. Between the two, which one is the better paint you would want to use if you were to put paint on your trees? What would you use? Interior, exterior latex paint?
Interior.
Interior? Any exterior? Because it's going outside, right?
Well,
Exterior?
Interior.
Exterior?
I use primer, interior, exterior.
Interior, exterior?
Yeah, it's an interior.
So, you want to know what's the reason that the research supports that you should be using interior latex paint over exterior latex paint? Any guesses?
The ingredients.
Ingredients. Which one's?
Because it's latex
The
or
lack of permeability.
What's that?
The lack of permeability.
The permeability. What do you think would be different?
Probably
What would an exterior paint have that has more than what an interior paint should have?
Strength.
oil.
It's not the oil. So it has more ingredients that kill plant life. Overall, the difference between interior and exterior paint is that interior paint is less toxic, but both of them are toxic. They're both bad. You put paint on your house, 100 years later, there's still paint on your house. You put paint on your trees, how long is that bark going to be on your tree? Within 1 to 3 years, that tree is going to create a new layer of bark, and all that paint's now where? in your soil forever. So it's not just the home gardeners that are doing whitewashing organically. We also have now orchards all across the country, pecan farms in the middle of the country, avocado farms in South Florida. And if they've got the certification that they're organic farms, they are even prohibited from using paint on their trees. So Ivory Organics was born, and that was on one of our first products was the 3-in-1 Plant Guard, is to protect your plants from, again, damaging sunburn. What it also has is these oils. So when you get the can, it comes with a bubble wrapped oil vial and then the base powder. And again, that base powder, as we said, is based on the traditional 1,000-year-old practice of using limestone and mica, which is clay. There's milk proteins, and then it's got these 7 natural garden oils, which include castor, cinnamon, cloves, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. All of these oils that are naturally pest-resistant plants. So you mix the powders with the oils, fill up the can with water, and you've got a can of organic paint, which is registered material for use in organic agriculture, and that'll protect your plants from all of those things.
How long does that last?
As I said, it protects your plants for about a year.
Once you mix it in.
So once you mix it in, great question. So the product has a shelf life of 5 years. Once you add water to it, it recommends you use the product within 2 weeks. If you know you don't need a full can, I recommend using like half the powder, half the oils, and then half of the amount of water. You can use it as a tree paste by using less water. And the same can, as you see on your sheets here, can make, somewhere in the middle, it reads, can make up to 5 gallons of also a foliar spray. So I can make somewhere between 20 to 25 of these using one of the pint cans. Again, by diluting it, the instructions on the back recommend that you can take about a third to a half of a teaspoon of the powder at a time with about 5 to 10 drops of oil. Make sure you filter it before you put it in your spray bottle, and now you've got a solution you can
filter it how?
you can use a paint filter, you can use a t-shirt, washcloth, anything. The goal is just to make sure that it's fine enough that it doesn't block or clog your spraying. So however you would filter something before you put it into your sprayer. And the same thing applies also for a gallon. So if it makes 5 gallons and you have a gallon tank sprayer, you're going to spray your entire garden, or if you've got tall avocado trees, you want to get up in the canopy and protect it from weather extremes. How much of this powder am I going to use to make a gallon? Come on, you math experts.
1/5.
1/5. So 1/5 of this powder makes 1 gallon, right? And you can use 1/5 of the oil and then and make a gallon. Thanks for that. I thought I had to give the answer away. That was my easy one.
We didn't have a math class.
Yeah, we're not here for math. One other thing I want to share about whitewash as well is the plants. I brought over here. Can you guys guess what this plant is, even though it's all chopped up?
Plumeria.
So Plumeria. This was one of these stems that came off of so I protected the heart of the plant. And again, the goal is to protect the heart, being the tree trunk lower branches. So this came off one of those side branches. And I don't know if you can see this, I'm gonna pass it around. One side of the Plumeria's got sunburn. You can see this entire length is sunburn. I would say close to a 2nd degree sunburn, because this is pretty significant burn, change of color. This here, I'd say 3rd degree sunburn, meaning the bark's damaged, the cambium tissue is gone, the underlying wood is now exposed. I've done a YouTube video sharing where someone had an orange tree in North Hollywood where they had a branch that was growing towards the pool. Landscaper cut the branch out of the way to make the walkway around the plant easier. But now the tree trunk that was naturally in the shade year round was now getting light into the understory of the canopy. The bark, 3rd degree burns. The bark, I was just peeling it right off. It was just crumbling off. We still whitewashed it, but for the plant to heal, and we're talking about there's at least a 50, 60-year-old orange tree, for it to heal, I mean, its width was about as wide as my body. For it to heal over that entire wound is probably not gonna happen in its lifetime. And now we're dealing with exposed wood. The 3-in-1 Plant Guard will still prevent termites and beetles from now entering that unprotected wood. So we're gonna still continue to coat it to maximize the longevity of the tree and enjoy some more fruit bearing years. But I'm gonna just pass this around so you can see the burn on the Plumeria. And then these are the branches that came off the top of the plant that were still not damaged. I was gonna give this a round and let's see how far it goes. You can keep it. This is my gift. I don't have room to plant any more Plumeria. So if one of you guys want that,
What color are
There's instructions. I don't know. I knew somebody was going to ask me. I don't know. I don't remember from last year, unfortunately.
This is where they put them.
So Hollywood we talked about, the heart of the tree we talked about, and the other point I want to make about with nursery trees, and I brought this example over here, and these avocados are for sale here as well, and these are very young avocados. You can see the seed. They're grafted with all the different varieties of avocados. But my point with this is all of the trees that you'll see within a nursery from the time they were created have always been in groups and clusters like this. But once you buy the tree from the nursery, take it home, in a matter of hours, what was once a shaded tree trunk, kind of like that orange tree that was pruned in spring, by summer, third-degree burns, and all of the trunk on the one side of the tree, and this is going to lead to my next question, got burned. The other side didn't get burned. My question to you is, at noon, where's the sun in the sky?
Straight up.
Straight up, like right there? So if my branches are all stretched out like this, that means all sides of me are getting equal amount of sun all the way around if the sun is straight up, right? The answer would be true if I was living on the equator, because the sun hovers over the equator. The globe, which I have over here, will demonstrate this better. If I were standing at the North Pole, since we're in the northern hemisphere, looking down towards the equator, since the sun is hovering around the equator, what side of my face is going to get the most sun? The south. So you always hear about plants, you know, the south side of the plant burns, but if I were in Australia, now I'm in the southern hemisphere looking up to the equator because that's where the sun's hovering, then it's going to be the north side of our body or in our plants that are going to get most sunburn. So when it comes to protecting your plants, if you're only going to coat or protect, some people when they plant and they stake their trees, they'll typically put the stake in the position of at least guarding and protecting that tree trunk from continuous exposure to sun. Just like our own skin, you would want to protect it if you're in the sun for more than, for some of you it's immediately, but I sometimes enjoy my 10 to 20 minutes of unprotected skin before putting on sunblock. You treat your plants the same way. And I just wanted to share that with you. And that concludes my lesson on whitewashing. Is there any questions on it?
Was this sprayed with a light spray of the
No, that's all natural. I kind of was demonstrating something, that's why that one got a little bit of paint on it. But that's that. The last thing I want to share with you guys real quick is fertilizers. And there's a couple of important tips I want to share with you. When it comes to fertilizing your plants, there's macronutrients and micronutrients that when you pick up a bag of fertilizer, there's going to be numbers on there. And the macronutrients, just as the name says, macro means abundance. I need more of it, big, like bigger. Macro means big, and micro means small. So your macronutrients, you need a lot more of it in your soil. Your micronutrients, you need less. With your macronutrients, what are the 3 macronutrients that are on every single fertilizer, or should be on every single bag of fertilizer or liquid fertilizer that you buy? So number 1, it's always the first position. What's the first number? Nitrogen. From this side, what's the second number?
Potassium.
No. Phosphorus. And then the third one is potassium. At least you got it. So these are the 3 that you'll see all the fertilizers marketing and saying we've got it. Nitrogen for greening, phosphorus for flower and fruiting, and then potassium for root development, disease resistance, so forth. So these 3. But how many macronutrients? You can go on Google and research plant macronutrients. What are they going to say? 3? 4? How many? Any guesses? 10?
12 to 15.
For those of you familiar with this product, what does it say? So 6 macros. Plants need 6 macronutrients, and that was the development of the 6 macros plus fertilizers that just came out like last year, spring, summer. 6 macros plus gives your plants, it's the first time any fertilizer, and it's kind of logical, that has all of the macronutrients in one. Instead of buying your NPK, which is your nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium fertilizers, and then buying CalMag, your calcium, magnesium separately, and then getting your Epsom salts to get your magnesium and sulfurs separately. This product actually has it all. Take a look at these super blends, and 6 macros plus fertilizers has all of the macronutrients plants need, which are sulfur, I'll take that back, let's start with the beginning. Your NPKs, your nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. What are the other 3 macronutrients plants need?
Calcium, magnesium.
Calcium. So calcium's in all of the plant cell walls. Another one? Magnesium. Magnesium's in the heart of the chlorophyll molecule. And the third one?
Did you say sulfur?
And then sulfur. Sulfur is also an important ingredient towards the greening of the plant. So you can use this in conjunction with your other organic fertilizers, knowing that they're getting all of the macronutrients that they need, a lot of the micronutrients, and also contains a lot of the beneficial microbes and mycorrhizae as well. I'm going to put this in your hands to just circulate so you guys can see it. Check out the ingredients. There's the Super Blend fertilizer, which has one of the highest NPKs. And I know that when you take a look at a fertilizer, some of them have like a 0.01 nitrogen. So small. Take a look and consider what you're buying also. This has an NPK of 13, 12, 13. So one of the highest NPKs you'll find in the organic fertilizer market. And then magnesium, sulfur, and calcium. The ingredients, it's an entire paragraph long. It's not just 1 to 5 ingredients to make sure your plants get everything. So that's what I want to share with you on that. The last thing I want to add is when feeding your soil organically, you're feeding the soil life. If you're feeding with a chemical, sometimes people say chemical. On the back side of this sheet that I'm going to give to you is a periodic table. And I just want to share with you that the word chemical applies for organic as well as the synthetic. So make sure that when you use the word chemical, that you try to maybe clarify and say, you know, the synthetic fertilizers, which are like the man-made chemical stuff that are not derived from organic sources. For example, in the 6 macros plus, I'll just read a few of the ingredients. There'll be feather meal, alfalfa meal, fishbone meal, kelp meal, cottonseed meal. List continues. Like I said, it's about 50 ingredients. The goal is what's happening when you add it to the soil is you're feeding the soil biology. What's in your soil that you're feeding? Any guesses?
The microbes.
Give me 3. Microbes being the beneficial bacteria. 2? This is 3 main ones. We're not feeding the moles and the gophers. But you're right, those guys are in the soil too, huh? What? Worms. So that's a big one. So we got the worms, and then this one last one being, I like calling them mushrooms and fungus, but there's another name for it. It's on that bag that's circulating. Your mycorrhizae.
Yeah.
So your mycorrhizae, also sometimes referred to as the hypha, are the roots of your mushrooms. And some people know mycorrhizae very well, but they never made the connection that the mushrooms that you see in your garden are the fruiting bodies of the mycorrhizae that's underneath. And they're there the whole year round, especially if you're doing mulching, which I'm going to let Gary go into in his talk. But by mulching, you're creating good, hospitable environment for the soil life, which includes, again, the earthworms, which in my handful of dirt might be 1, 2, or 3 earthworms, but billions of beneficial bacteria and billions of those hypha of the beneficial mycorrhizae. One mushroom has those hypha roots or mycorrhizae that can reach as far as 1,000 feet. So imagine one mushroom can network, moving water and nutrients between all the plants in your entire garden with just one mushroom. That's your evidence that it's in your garden. But if you see those white filament threads that are typically between the compost and the soil, that means there's a good network happening in the soil. It's very exciting. I like your smile. Yeah.
So it's good when we see mushrooms come up.
Yeah, it's a very big deal. I don't eat the mushrooms in my garden because I don't know what's what when it comes to mushrooms, but a very good sign that your plants are happy because they're balancing the movement of water within the entire garden. A very big deal. So with fertilizers, the thing I wanted to highlight with worms is that by having more worms in your garden, because you're feeding them organically, the synthetic stuff, the chemical, man-made chemical stuff, is potentially harming and maybe even killing the beneficial life in your soil, whereas the organic stuff is feeding them. And the goal is by having more worms. Another thing that some research supports is that they, you've heard of worm castings, worm gold, and so forth. Their compost has also chitinase in it. And chitinase is an enzyme that the plants uptake, and they say that insects that then now eat the plants that have chitinase in their bodies. So a aphid or beetle or whatever is, or grasshopper that's chewing on your plants that have chitinase within the plant because you've got earthworms and they're creating natural worm gold in your soil instead of this bindworm castings, we can make it by feeding your soil organically. Now your plants are, what it does is chitinase is an enzyme that breaks down chitin, and chitin is the exoskeleton of all of those insects. Your aphids, your beetles, your grasshoppers, anything that has an exoskeleton, it's making them weaker. So now you've naturally created an environment within your garden where if pests come and chew on your plants, instead of getting healthier eating your plants, they're getting sicker naturally.
How do you spell that?
So chitinase, I actually even spelled it out, and I Googled it to make sure. C-H-I-T-I-N, so that's chitin, and then you add A-S-E for the enzyme. So chitin again is C-H-I-T-I-N. And that's it. That concludes my number 1, number 2 points relating to sustainable gardening. I want to give the floor to Gary. If Gary, you can hear me, the floor is yours. Are there any other questions until Gary gets here?
Just when would you use one over the other, the super blend versus the premium?
Oh, so a great question. So there's a super and a premium blend fertilizer. The premium, the super blend, I mean, when you take a look at it, the retail price is a little higher than most organic fertilizers. So we have to do something that's more comparable to the market. This is an amazing product we put our heart and soul into, and kind of network the country trying to find out how can we best make a product that will give the plants all these benefits that otherwise don't exist. That was a super blend. We then created something with lower NPK. This is a 244, so a lower way to still get the macronutrients to your plants at a price that's more comparable to market, but you're getting lower NPK compared to you can use less of this, knowing that it's higher, but all of, and 1% of this ingredient is in here as well. If it's specifically like for tomatoes, this has a very high calcium, it's 17%, but the brains of the idea with the 6 macros is the super blend. The premium was created just to create a product that's more in line with the products that are out there on the market. Yeah, so super blend is the higher NPK, and then the premium blend is the lower NPK. I don't have that on hand, but the floor is yours, Gary. I'm gonna mic you up.
How far can you use that?
Typically, they typically read when you look online that the smaller bags make 20 gallons, tablespoon to a gallon of water, or you can just scatter it around the plant. And then there's the 4-pound bags that make 120 gallons. And like I said, I would incorporate it with your other organic ways and to kind of just know that your plants are getting everything like for the first time. Let me give you the mic.
Okay, we're going to do a little switch off at the moment.
Good. Here we go. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
First time I'm surprised to see you. I just something with you.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
So I think they made a deal with the people.
Well, it doesn't matter what color you wear. You're protecting the underlying bark, and it's going to prevent those burns from happening.
Right.
The focus is on the south side of the plant, so you're right. So come down to the Laguna Hills Nursery, and if you've enjoyed this educational video, be sure to give us a thumbs up, and most importantly, don't forget to subscribe and hit that push bell notification to get informed of the next educational video by Ivory Organics. I'm also going to put the link to the Laguna Hills Nursery YouTube channel, which is called, Leah, do you want to share with us? What's the name?
Gary's Best Gardening.
Gary's Best Gardening, and it matches his Gary's Best Soils that we talked about earlier as well. So be sure to come down and check out all of these very amazing and fine and interesting products to add to your gardens to make this your best growing season ever, and especially with these extremely knowledgeable sales staff. Thanks again for watching, and wishing you all happy gardening.